Okay, welcome everybody. It's just ticked over 3:30, 4:30, depending on where you are on my clock. So we'll get started with today's session. I'm going to start with our acknowledgement of country. I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we are meeting. As we gather on this sacred land, let us acknowledge that we are standing on country. On these lands, age-old ceremonies, celebrations, initiations, and renewals have been performed. We acknowledge the elders, past, present, and emerging, and their ancestors who have a deep relationship with country. While there has been great change to this land over the generations, we know in our hearts that the story and spirit of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people will always be written in this landscape. Lord of heaven and earth, we thank you for the gift of sight and insight. In a world that is full of activity, healing, and work, we pray for the Holy Spirit to help us love one another as Jesus loved us. May we, who are working together, continue to listen and to learn from each other, guided as always by your eternal wisdom. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. This session is brought to you by Catholic Learning Online, which is a group of educators from a range of different dioceses brought together by Catholic Network Australia. You'll see on the left-hand side there, we've got Christine, Karen, JJ, Ben, Vicky, Frank, and myself, Mark Woolley. We're all part of the working group. And on the list on the right-hand side, you'll see representatives from other dioceses. Those representatives are the people in your diocese that you can refer to about particular things that might be diocesan specific. But at all times, feel free to reach out to anybody who might be on this list. Our operating norms are, if you're not speaking, please leave your microphone muted. The session will be recorded, it will be uploaded, so you'll be able to access it afterwards if you need to go back and check on something, or maybe show it to a colleague. And if your video or if your bandwidth permits, please turn your video on. It's great to see people. That way we get an idea about who's connecting with what we're saying and what direction we might be better off heading in. If you are tweeting today, use the hashtag Chloe22, and that way we'll be able to find it. And in the chat there, and also in the video, you'll be able to find members of Catholic Learning Online. I can see a few in there already, so thank you very much to them for coming along. Today is all about creating effective instructional videos with Screencastify. Screencastify is a great tool. It's very quick and easy to use. It integrates really well with Google Drive and a range of other tools that we're probably already using. And I feel super confident that you'll leave this session with some new skills that you can use straight away. So our learning intentions are that we're going to make videos that will personalize learning for our students. We're going to learn how to modify existing content to recognize the complex needs of students. And we're going to explore how to implement practices that allow students to own their own learning. And we'll know we've been successful by the end of today when we can create those videos that make learning personal. You can edit your content and honor the differences in learning styles and the complex learning needs of students. And you can implement practices to allow students to own their own learning. And this is a great tool for teachers, but it's also a great tool for students, as I'm sure we're about to hear more about. So our presenter today is Olivia Nelson. And Olivia is a former K-12 teacher from America, and she works as a professional development specialist for Screencastify. She does this day in and out, and I'm sure she has a lot to share with us. So, Olivia, are you in the background there?
I am.
Awesome. Okay. Would you like me to hand over control of the whole show?
That would be wonderful.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm generally a pretty high energy person. I'm going to try to maintain that. I'll be very honest and tell you it is about 1:30 in the morning where I am. And so if for some reason my energy seems a little bit low, just bear with me. That would be the only reason. I am going to jump right in.
And
so I'd love, sorry,
very
go ahead.
quickly, just thank you very much. You guys have been wonderful at being available at whatever time we had to have it. And unfortunately, it is a little bit later than anyone would like, but thank you for staying up that late.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. I was able to sort of find some hours in the day to take a nap, so it's totally fine. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys. I could not get enough of talking about Screencastify. The first thing I would love to do, though, is just sort of get a gauge of how comfortable folks already are. You could use these little Zoom reactions, or you could just use regular people words in the chat box. That works for me too. I'm just sort of curious about like how comfortable you are with Screencastify. So if you could take a second and give me an answer, then we will get started. I see a couple coming in. Awesome. Cool. It seems like we have sort of a variety of folks, which is totally fine and awesome. Great. Perfect. Cool. So we are here to talk about creating effective instructional videos, like Mark said. And so I'm pretty excited. I see a bunch of folks that either don't know what Screencastify is or have not used it. So hopefully, regardless of sort of how comfortable you currently are, you'll leave today with something that you can use right away. So we'll go ahead and get started. So Mark's already introduced me. I taught a ton of grades, a ton of subjects here in the United States. Third grade math is sort of where my heart is. I would love to get to know each of you really quickly. I'm not a robot. Y'all are not robots. And so I would love to be able to sort of speak to who you actually are. Some of you have already dropped introductions in the chat box, so I can certainly scroll up and read those, so don't feel like you need to drop it again. But if you have not already sort of dropped your name and what you teach or what your role is, I would love if you could do that in the chat box. Again, it's just because I don't want to talk to you about things that don't feel relevant. So I would just sort of love to know who is here. Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Great. Thanks, Amanda, for adding that. Cool. I'm going to let those introductions keep rolling in. I'm going to go ahead and check them in just a second so that I make sure that I know who's here. But in the meantime, I'll walk you through what we will do today. So we will start with talking about creating videos. I will talk to you about what it looks like to create a video, and then we'll actually make one together. In the second portion of this session, we'll talk about using those videos. So I have been to my fair share of workshops, professional development sessions, where we leave and we're like, yeah, that's totally awesome. Now what, right? And so I want to try to answer that now what question for you during this second portion of the session today. And then at the end of the session, I'd like to leave some time for question and answer. That does not mean that you need to wait until that question and answer period. If you have a question throughout the presentation today, please drop it in the chat box. Like I said, I'm an educator by trade, so I don't want anyone to sit in here confused. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, we'll start with creating these videos. I will pose a quick question to you guys. I'll give you this warning, which is that I'm going to ask you to do a bunch in the chat box. You may have already noticed. My question to you guys is, so essentially what we're doing with video is taking the things that we would teach students and making that content available for them on demand, right? And I'm curious what you think the benefit of that is, right? How are our students benefiting from being able to access the content at any time? You can drop your answers in the chat box, and I will say that there's no right or wrong answer here. Yep, so Jenny says if they don't understand it, they can listen to it again, particularly helpful for those with processing difficulties. So I'll just highlight that reason and I'll scroll through, and there are tons of other great reasons. But I was talking to an educator recently, and I thought this was extremely profound. You cannot pause and rewind a human, right? So if I'm a student and I'm in class and I am struggling to understand what my teacher said, I can't pause my teacher and take a second. I can't rewind my teacher and re-listen to what they've just said, right? The only option I have is I can raise my hand and ask my teacher to repeat themselves, which is, of course, a great option. But what it now does as a student is it puts me center stage, and all my peers are able to know that I don't understand, right? And so with video, students now can rewind, pause, do whatever they need to do to understand, and they can do it sort of in the privacy of their own environment without other folks having to know how many times they watched the video or whether they understood or anything like that. So I thought that that was a great way of explaining sort of what students can gain from this. Yeah, I see a lot of other great reasons in here, right? I think one of them is that they can access it when it suits them, right? Everyone has a really different schedule. And so this allows students to be flexible and do work and access material when it makes sense for them. Awesome. All of the reasons in the chat box are relevant and great, but I just wanted to highlight a couple. All right, so for those of you who said you have never used Screencastify and or have no idea what it is, now comes the fun part. So Screencastify is a Google Chrome extension. So you download it and you install it, and it lives right up here next to your address bar in Google Chrome. When I click on it, you'll see that I get much of that same, this same picture that's here, right? So what we can do when we use Screencastify is create videos, just 3 clicks. It's super customizable in terms of what you're including in that video. We'll talk about that in a second when we make our own. And then the best thing about this is that then you can share these videos super easily and get them in the hands of your audience, whether that's community members or whether that is students, right? All right. Any questions about that? All right, so I am going to play this video that was made by a colleague of mine. For those of you that have never used Screencastify, this is a great example. What my colleague has done here is pull up an infographic about the Bill of Rights in the United States and record her screen with that infographic showing, but then also embed her webcam down here so that we can see her, okay? I'm gonna play this video. And I would love you to tell me what you love about it and then what's not so great about it. And then we'll use Screencastify to make our own. All right, here we go. So again, I'm going to play the video. Just tell me what you think is awesome and what we could do even better. You can feel free to drop it during or after. Here we go.
Hi, today we're learning about the Bill of Rights. You might remember that the Bill of Rights has 10 different amendments that give folks in the United States certain rights that they should expect from the government. So the first amendment to the Bill of Rights is actually freedom of expression. And you probably heard about that one because it includes our freedom of speech, it includes our freedom of religion, it includes the freedom of the press. There are 5 different freedoms that you can see here. So we also have the freedom of assembly, so we can protest together, and then the freedom of petition, so we can formally create some sort of grievances against the government and petition them to make changes. We also have the Second Amendment, which is around the right to bear arms. And generally, there is a little bit of a discussion about what that actually means. But theoretically, it means that individuals have the right to have some sort of firearms, maybe. But we'll talk about some of the controversy around that as we continue. We also have the Third Amendment, which is basically saying that the government can't show up to your house, knock on the door, and say that you have to have somebody from the Army, the Navy, or any armed forces stay with you, and you have to provide them food and shelter, which is similar to what the British did when we were a colony of theirs. Hi.
All right, y'all. So I see some answers starting to come in the chat box, which is awesome. It seems to me that the common thread in terms of what we like is that we can see the teacher on the screen, right? And I think that's a great point. I think it's the whole part of the whole reason that you create video with Screencastify instead of just finding a video somewhere else is that it's personal and it's designed for your students, including that sort of image visual of your face and your voice that students can still connect with their teacher, right? Definitely. All right, y'all, it is time. Oh, some things I saw in chat box that could have been better, and you can still drop things if you haven't already, is that it was difficult to read and see the infographic. There was not a lot of direction in terms of what we should be looking at any given time, right? So today, this study that I've cited down here actually highlights 4 different things that are going to make a video effective. Today, we're going to talk about just these 2. The first is signaling, and that's going to be making sure we can see what is most important at any given time. We do this in our real live classrooms also, right? At least when I was a teacher, I had tons of text everywhere in my room, and my students, to know at any given time what to look at, I might point or use some other visual cue for them to know, right? And then segmenting is just chunking this information and breaking it down so that we're looking at one thing at a time. Awesome, a page for each amendment. I love these recommendations. So now it is time, and thank you, Mark, for dropping that link. I'm going to catch it so that I can send it out also. I would love for you guys to take a quick vote. And the vote is on, do we want to make our video about the Bill of Rights for continuity so we can be better than my colleague? Or do we want to make our video about math, since you guys don't live in the United States and don't care about the Bill of Rights anyway? You can drop your answer in the chat box and we will do whatever I see the most of in the next 30 seconds. Awesome, figured. I'm a genius. All right, great. I see math overwhelmingly win. Perfect. So lucky you guys, here's my math example. So let's do it together. So we will make a video together that shows some of the things that we can do to improve this with Screencastify. I'm trying to pin myself here. There we go. All right, so here is our presentation. Can you just drop a yes in the chat box if you can see my math problem and my extension that I just opened on my screen? Beautiful. Plenty of yeses. All right, we are ready to rock and roll. So for those of you that have never used Screencastify, the very first thing that we can do here is decide what we're recording. Okay, so this is a Google Slides presentation that I created. I could choose to record this browser tab, which will limit my recording just to this tab. If I want to show other tabs or maybe even something else on my computer, I would switch to this desktop recording. And then this webcam recording will be sort of like what we have on Zoom right now, just us talking directly to the camera, right? In this case, everything I want to show lives in this one browser tab, so that option works great. I'm going to keep my microphone turned on, embed my webcam. Everyone in here said they really liked being able to see the teacher. So this embed webcam option is how that will happen. So Rochelle, once you check off this embed webcam, then that will put the image of the teacher in the corner there as well. So browser tab will record the screen, and then I can embed the webcam there to make sure that I can stay on screen as well. Thank you for asking. Countdown just gives us a couple of seconds to get ready. I always keep mine enabled if I'm just being honest. I never am ready right away when I click record. And then these drawing tools are going to allow us to do some really neat things on screen. So I'm going to keep those displayed as well. All right, y'all, here we go. You are going to be stuck with 2 of me for just a second. There will be the embedded webcam me and the Zoom me, but it will not be for too long. All right, y'all. So first things first, I will make my confession. We'll get it out of the way. I am a chronic pauser. So you may have noticed that I clicked this pause button down on the drawing toolbar. That will pause my recording. So right now we are not recording, and that is a-okay. And it's really important that you recognize that that's available both for yourself and, like Mark said, in case you are going to have students. In case you're going to have students use the tool, right? Now they know they don't have to be perfect that first time around. They can record something and always, someone's not on mute and I don't have the power to mute them. Sorry, y'all. They can push that pause button in the middle of their recording and they won't have to be perfect that first time around. So I think it's a really lovely safety blanket. I surely use it all the time. Couple things. We can collapse this drawing toolbar and expand it and actually move it all around so that it's not blocking anything on our screen. We can actually do the same thing with this webcam. We can make it bigger or smaller, move it all around. Remember that we're talking about signaling and making sure that students know what is most important. One thing I've seen teachers do is actually move their webcam and point at things, right? Students are using all kinds of social media and accessing video in those platforms, and that creates something that's sort of familiar to those kinds of things. I've never done it personally, but I know a lot of teachers have used it and been successful. In terms of the mouse, the first mouse we have is this clicks, right? So one thing you can do with Screencastify is record your screen and show students how to navigate a new website or do anything on the computer. And so when you're doing that, you obviously will want students to know exactly what you're clicking on. And so this red circle will help them be able to see exactly what it is. This focus mouse is going to be this sort of spotlight that you can make bigger or smaller with the up and down arrows on your keyboard. Sorry, give me just 1 second. Awesome. And then this pen tool allows you to circle things, draw arrows, underline whatever you need to do. This rectangle tool will allow you to highlight things on screen as well. And then the sticker, I love this for giving feedback or just showing general excitement to students while they're working. You can place these sort of emoji stickers throughout your screen. All right, y'all. I am going to go ahead and record. All right, guys, let's go ahead and review how to multiply a single digit number by a multiple of 10. Remember, the first thing you'll want to do is find those clue numbers. That'll be the single digit number and the number besides the ones place in the multiple of 10. So here I've found my clue numbers. The second thing you'll want to do is multiply those clue numbers together. 4 times 5. That equals 20. So step 2 is multiply those clue numbers. And then the very last thing that we'll need to do here is bring down this 0. And so our answer here, and I'm actually going to pause the video and grab a pen so that I'm ready to write it, is 200. Awesome. I'm going to pause the video again and switch over to the next slide. You could keep the video going. For me, it just makes it a little more seamless so that students aren't watching me switch things, but it really doesn't make that big of a difference. I'm going to skip over to this slide. Notice too that the drawing toolbar is sticky, right? So those drawings that I made on that slide did not migrate over to this one, which is pretty cool, I think. All right, now it is your turn. Step 1, find those clue numbers. I'm going to give you a second and then I'll show you what they are. Awesome. Here are our clue numbers. Step 2, multiply those clue numbers together. All right, what did you get? That's right, 18. Then the last step is that we need to go ahead and bring that 0 down. So go ahead and bring the 0 down. Great. Now our answer is 180, right? Oops, sorry, y'all. And when you're done, you'll click stop and your video will open in this new tab that's called the video management page. Notice here it's automatically saving to my Google Drive without me having to do anything. So one of the great things about Screencastify is that it saves to your Google Drive and you don't have to save it, right? It's just there automatically. One thing I will say is that untitled presentation is probably not going to be enough information for me to figure out, to find this video again, right? So I will jump in here and I can give it whatever title I want instead, right? Any questions? Yes, you can hotkey between the different pens, pointers, and pausing. What I will do for you, you guys are brilliant. Most engaged, making 130 easy for me. I will drop in the chat box the list of keyboard shortcuts because there are a ton and it would take me too long to list them off the top of my head, but yes. So short answer is yes, absolutely. You can do a bunch of stuff simply from pushing keys on your keyboard. Truthfully, because you guys can't see my keyboard, that's the only reason that I don't use my hotkeys during presentations, because it's sort of hard for me to display to you what I'm doing if I'm just pushing keys on my keyboard that you can't see. But in terms of ease of use, absolutely. Any other questions about recording before I jump into the editor? Okay. So here are the ways that we can sort of signal with Screencastify Record. We did a bunch of them already, but now we'll jump into the editing tool and we'll sort of supercharge the video with some of the editing options. Okay. So here we are on the video management page. Again, this is sort of like the hub for anything you're wanting to do. And luckily, this is where you automatically end up when you make a video. Up here, you can click Open in Editor. And that will open you up in Screencastify Edit, where you can make some changes to your video. So here we are with our video in the editor. One thing I'll point out here is that we jumped over here, we made a video and immediately brought it into the editor, right? And now we're gonna make some changes. But all of the changes that we're gonna make to this video, you could actually make to any video that you have, whether you created it with Screencastify last week or you got it from somewhere else entirely, right? As long as you have the video in MP4 format, in the editor here, you can click Add Media and pull that video in and make some of these same changes that we're about to make, right? Cool. All right. So let's start with one of my favorites, which is adding text. So here I walked students through a procedure, right? I told them step 1, step 2, step 3. I said it very clearly out loud, each individual step, but I'm going to have some students for whom the auditory version is simply not enough. I'm that student, just to be totally clear. So they're going to need to see this written in words, right? They're visual learners. They need to see things written. So if step 1 is to find the clue numbers, I can actually jump in here and click text. And I get this text box that I can move wherever I want. And I can type in there, step 1, find the clue numbers, right? And now for my visual learners, they don't have to be relying on those auditory skills of theirs that might not be as strong. On the right side here, I have a ton of options for what this text looks like. So I can make it bigger. I can add a background color. I can add a border color, right? I can do all sorts of things here. When I'm done, I click done. And down here, the user interface on the editor is going to give you handles on either side of most things you do so that you can squeeze or stretch. Olivia, what are you talking about? I'll tell you. So the text, this box will tell us how long the text stays on the screen. So if we grab this handle and squeeze it, then that means that step 1, find the clue numbers, will just flash up and disappear. If instead we grab this and stretch it out the whole time we're finding the clue numbers, then it will stay up there the whole time that we're doing that step, right? We can do the same things for step 2 and step 3. So we can jump over here and click step 2, multiply your clue numbers, right? And then step 3 would be bring down the 0. I'm not going to add that text simply for in the interest of time, but you get the point. The other thing that I think is really wonderful is the zoom option. So here we are, we've said, here are the clue numbers, and then we're doing some math and we're doing it down below those numbers. So I would love if I kind of zoomed in on that piece of the screen while I'm working with those numbers so that students kind of can see exactly where I'm at. So I'll click in there and click zoom, and you'll notice I'm given this green box and I can resize it. Everything in the box is what we're zooming in on. Okay, I'm gonna make it even smaller. There we go. And I will click done. Again, same thing down here. I'm gonna move it over just a little. Same thing with the handles, right? I can squeeze it so that we zoom in for just a quick second, or I could stretch it so we stay zoomed in a little while. Okay. In terms of sort of eliminating, I just said a bunch of stuff about how to point out the stuff that is important. In terms of eliminating things that are not important, we have this crop option, which will give us this orange box, and we can just crop out that toolbar at the top because we don't want it showing, right? We could do the same thing with the toolbar on the side. And then we have this blur option also. Truthfully, I probably would use a crop option here, but I'm going to blur just so you guys can see what it looks like. You click blur, and just like sort of all of the other tools, you'll be given this box that you can choose to cover whatever you want, and then up the intensity if you need to. And then when you're done, you can click done. Blur is really wonderful for if you want to highlight student work or give feedback on something and there's a name or other sensitive information that you want to get out of there that's like in the middle or somewhere that you can't really crop, right? I am going to go ahead and play this through, not all the way, but just this first part, just so you guys can see what some of these changes that we just made look like. Digit number by a multiple of 10. Remember, the first thing you'll want to do is find those clue numbers. So just to be clear, if I wanted this to pop up exactly when I say it, I can also always just drag it over a little so that the timing is better, right? So the clue numbers, that'll be the single digit number and the number besides the ones place in the multiple of 10. So here I've found my clue numbers. The second thing you'll want to do is multiply those clue numbers together. 4 times 5, that equals 20. So step 2 is multiply those clue numbers. And then the very last thing that, right? And so I will be fully transparent in telling you that both of my parents are filmmakers. This is a very true story. I'm being honest here. And they're disappointed in my inability to create film. And so Screencastify has been my saving grace. As you can see, I've created a professional grade film that I could proudly show my parents, and I did it with ease. And now that is great for me. Once you're done doing whatever you want to do with your video, you'll click export. We're actually going to do a couple of things in terms of segmenting before we do that. So here are some of the ways that we can signal with Screencastify in the editor. You've just seen them. Now I want to talk to you really quickly about breaking up the content. So I'm going to jump back into the editor. And one thing that we can do is break up the content by just clicking cut. So what I'm going to do is click cut here. And now I've created 2 separate clips, right? When I click add media, I already told you guys that I can import videos from elsewhere. I'm actually going to use this title option. And notice it created this black screen with some text. It went at the beginning. I want it in the middle, so I'll just drag it over there. Again, super easy to use. And I'm actually going to make this text say, so in the video, I asked my students, I said, what is 4 times 5, right? And then I went ahead and solved it. But what I can do is actually stick a minute, or not a minute, but a couple seconds in here for my students to actually think about that and write down their answer before I solve for them on screen, right? So what is 4 times 5? Write it down. And then I can click done. Each of these longer lines here is 5 seconds. So I'll be very honest with you guys. I just guesstimate and just drag it and give, that's about enough time. You could certainly count by 5s and give a specific amount of time for this task, right? But essentially what I've done here is made this video interactive for my students in a way that it previously was not, right? Previously, it was me demonstrating something and them sort of taking it in. Now they've got a job to do for real, right? Again, when I'm done, I'll click export and choose to my computer or back to Screencastify. And then we're done there. Any questions about anything that I just did there? Awesome. Okay. So if you have a question, please feel free. I'll answer it as we go along. What we will do now, though, is take about 7 minutes or so to play around with the tool ourselves. I will start by giving a preemptive apology and ask for your preemptive forgiveness, because I know that 7 minutes is not a ton of time, but I want to make sure to cover the other things that we came to talk about. Yes, it saves automatically straight to Google, to your Google Drive. Yep. So here is that link that Mark dropped earlier. For those of you that don't have Screencastify, this will be where you can start. It'll take you straight to the Chrome web store, and you can just click add to Chrome, and then it will ask you to grant a couple of permissions there. If you don't see it once you've added this to Chrome, you can just click this puzzle piece and it'll be in this drop down menu here. I've used this push pin to make sure that mine is always available, but if you don't see it, don't panic, try the puzzle piece. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to mute myself. If you have any questions in the next 7 minutes, please drop them in the chat box. All right, see you guys in 7. All right, so we are going to come back together. As I dropped in the chat box, hopefully you remember about 7 minutes ago, you already forgave me. And so that's something that I've got on my side. I'm going to run through some of the questions that I answered in the chat box during this time. I really do mean it when I say you guys are making my job much easier by being as engaged and as inquisitive as you are. First thing is that I saw someone ask about trimming either end of the video. So maybe you have something in the beginning or end that you don't want. In the video management page, these little scissors on either side are the quickest way to get rid of something like that. I had, someone ask about this tab audio option here. That is going to capture sound coming from your computer. So if you're including a song or a video in your recording here and you want to capture that, you'll want to turn this on. We just used sort of a Google Slides presentation that didn't have any sound in it, so we didn't need that option when we recorded today. I saw someone asked about the free version. We can do everything we've talked about today on either version of this. And then the last question is about the editing, the text option. It's kind of funny because what happens is it's like this little scrolling bar here is sort of hard to see. And so you probably will see some of these options and you'll have to click on that and pull it down, or just use whatever scrolling you use. So I use like the 2 fingers on my trackpad to access these other formatting options in terms of the text in the editor. And then the last thing I saw was someone asking about how to pull in a video that you've created with Screencastify before. You would click add media, and then it will probably be on your drive because that's where it was automatically saved. And so you can click drive and search for it and pull it in and do whatever you want with the editor there. So hopefully, so this is a great question about audio. So if you want to record a video and have yourself over top of it, right now, the only option that we offer for that is that you could enable that tab audio and then pause the video when you wanted to talk. So it's not great because you'll be, Felicia, stick around at the very end and I can troubleshoot with you. I don't want to spend too much time on it in this beginning part, but I will figure it out. In terms of the video, we don't have a great option for capturing sort of both at the same time on a different sort of scale, like lowering the volume of the video while you're talking. So my recommendation would just be to pause it. Keep the questions coming. I'll jump in and answer some more in just a second. But I want to tell you a couple more things. So previously, historically, when we have created videos, we have wanted to send them to someone, right? So here we are in the video management page. Again, I call this sort of like the hub for whatever we want to do. And we have a bunch of options here for how we share these with our students or whomever we're sharing with, right? We could also use this to communicate with families. We could also use this to communicate something with our team members, right? There are all sorts of people we might be sharing with, but these are all of our sharing options up here. I'm going to click show share settings and note that it's private automatically. That's just so that folks are not accessing your video before you're ready. As soon as you click this link to go ahead and share it, the software is smart enough to say, oh, Olivia wants to share it. I need to change those settings so that someone can actually view it, right? Now, here's the fun part. Historically, we have shared videos with students and just crossed our fingers and hoped that they viewed the videos and used the videos and engaged with them, right? With Screencastify, we can actually gather some information about whether that's true or not, instead of just crossing our fingers. So I'm going to jump in here. Who can access this video? We can change it back to private or really customize it by adding specific domains that can access it here. I'm going to choose anyone with the link because I'm going to share with you guys. Then I can choose how to track, again, those viewers. So I can choose either by email address, which will require people to log in with their Google account, which is great because I'll be able to see their real names there, or by nickname. This is great if I'm sharing with a wider audience who may or may not have Google accounts, right? And then I click save. I'm going to drop this link in the chat box and ask you guys to do me a favor and click on it. You obviously don't have to watch the video. I just want to show you what will happen to our viewer count when you do. I'll do you guys the favor. I know some of you are not in a position to click on it and access it, so I will show you what that looks like. You should see this screen that says nickname. You will want to norm with students around what they enter here, or they will enter whatever they want. I do first name, last initial. You can choose whatever you want, but I would recommend giving some guidance there. And then click continue. And now I can play the video through, right? So as a teacher or a creator of the video, notice we started with a viewer count of 0. I will find out who my favorite people are. No, I'm just kidding. I love all of you. 17 of you have accessed the video, right? So I can see everyone's names here. I can see the most recent view and how many views. Couple things I'll highlight. Most recent view is absolutely incredible, particularly for content that you might want students to view more than once. I can guarantee that it will not be just one time in the school year that I'm asking students to multiply a single digit number by a multiple of 10. Now I can say anytime they're doing something that requires that, hey, revisit the video that we did on that, right? And I have an accountability measure to see, well, the last time you looked at this was in January. So maybe that's why you're getting it wrong. Try reviewing the video, right? And so I have an accountability measure, 1, to hold kids accountable, but 2, to say, okay, this is how I can support them. They really need some one-on-one support because they're watching the video and still not getting it, versus they haven't even revisited the video. So that's going to be my step number 1, right? All right. The other thing I'll highlight here, though, and I'll be honest, is that these views, y'all didn't watch the whole video. You just clicked on the link, right? And so your students will show up as views from just clicking the link. And so this gives us the most basic information about, did students just access the video, right? If we're wanting more information about how they're engaging with the video, we'll use this interactive questions option here. And so what interactive questions will do is allow us to enter a question into our video. And so the student experience will be that the video will pause and the question will pop up on the screen. So remember this that I added in with the editor. Now I can actually ask students to answer a multiple choice question about this question, right? So I can say, add question, what is 4 times 5? Right? I asked them to think about it and write it down, but now I can actually enter this in here. So I can say 20, right? Right now we need to put at least 2 answer choices and up to 4, and we have to choose a correct answer. So for now, multiple choice is the only question type, but I know for sure that our software engineers are working on that. And then I can click save. Down at the bottom, I have my questions. So as I start to add more questions, I can hover over and see which one is which. And on the right side here, my questions will populate and I can edit them and delete them. When I'm ready to share, I can jump into this share and copy do either of these, or if I'm on my video management page, any of these sharing options up at the top will include those viewer analytics and the questions that you've added. So if you share via QR code, which is my absolute favorite way to share videos, it will include those questions that you've added. The other thing I'll say here is that link that I shared with you guys is a live link. So while there was no question in that video when I first shared it with you, if you click on it again now, you will notice that the question has been added. So that's really wonderful, because once you share your video with the students, you won't need to reshare because you've added questions, right? They can still access it the same way they did before. So I put Q for questions and I'll continue. All right, also, I don't want to hear myself. I can move through the video as I want to, but what I can't do is get past the question, right? It's giving me this error that says can't skip ahead. So I have to jump in and answer and click submit. It'll tell me right away what the right answer is, and then I can keep going. Okay. On your end, you will see, I knew I was going to have some awesome people in here. You will see the response tab, the data start to populate, right? Thank you, Mark. So we have aggregate level data, how everyone's doing, individual level data, how each student is doing, and then question level data, right? So we can really narrow this down and say, how did Amanda do? Let me find out. Okay, she really struggled with this question. Did everyone else struggle with this question? Oh, everyone struggled with this question, not just Amanda, right? So you can do a lot there in terms of those. All right, y'all. So what does this mean for the classroom? I have about 3 minutes because then I want to drop a survey in the chat box so that you guys can give us some feedback. But I'm going to breeze through what this might look like in the classroom and some of the ways I've seen it used. First thing is recording directions. I've seen this used for students doing activities at home with their parents, but I've also seen it used for sort of small group instruction in the classroom. This is where that QR code that I was saying I love comes in really handy, because you can give each individual group a different QR code or a different link, and now they can access a video that gives them directions for the activity that they're doing. I'll share these slides with you so that you can watch this video of me pretending, oh, I'm wearing the same shirt, of me pretending to be an art teacher. I won't make you sit through it now, but I'll share these slides and you can watch it at your leisure. Sharing great instructional videos. I won't say too much about this. We made a great instructional video together. Yes, thanks, Scott. But this is an example of one of those ones that you might want students to watch more than once, right? It's about writing a thesis, which is something they certainly do more than one time in a year. So you probably want them to revisit this video and you can see if they have. Getting ready to use awesome tools. Remember, I said with the click mouse, it's one of the ways that we can really highlight what we're doing on screen and students can see it. And then making feedback verbal, we can make it so it's not punitive, and instead students can hear our voices and know we're there to support them. The last thing is that it's a backstage pass into student thinking. And so what I will do here is just very quickly highlight our tool, Screencastify Submit, which is our video assessment tool. If you have not used it before, I would recommend hopping in here and trying it out, but I'll show you really quickly what an assignment here would look like. So you'll decide whether students are recording their screen or their webcam or both. You'll give them some directions about the assignment. You'll choose some sort of access settings. And then what will happen is when they access the link, this is what they will see, okay? So notice that links in this are live, right? Students can click record, choose what to record. Oh no, so I would have to probably clear my cache there because it's saying it can't record. Let me see, maybe I can just record the tab. There we go. Okay. Interesting. I think maybe because I'm sharing my screen. What will happen is it will populate in a Google Drive folder on your Google Drive. So you'll be able to, oh, Jenny, I can tell you how to do it. So you'll be able to see these videos immediately. So the main thing about Screencastify Submit is that students will not have to send you their videos. So once they submit their videos, and I'm not sure why it's not working, but I'm not going to mess with it. It'll populate in, notice this has the same name as my assignment, and my videos are populating in there immediately. So as a teacher, you'll have those right away. Students don't have to share anything with you. It just goes in there. Oh, beautiful. Jenny, you can see the power of video. You can rewind and pause me as you need to. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a second. I know I breezed through that last part, but I want to go ahead and drop this survey because you guys had some really wonderful sort of questions and suggestions. So the survey is twofold. It has some stuff about the product and some stuff about the presentation. So product, things you wish Screencastify could do or things you love that it can do, and presentation, things you loved about today's presentation and things you would have liked to see more of. Again, I will make sure to email Mark the slides so that you guys have them and can review those alongside the recording sort of at your leisure. I really, really, really appreciate everyone taking the time today. Again, I cannot thank you enough for your engagement. I do this all day, every day. This is my first time doing it at 1:30 in the morning, and I was a little bit nervous. And I really, really mean it when I say you guys made it easy. Thank you again for being just so engaged and so inquisitive. And I can tell that you guys are just incredible educators just based on your investment in making sure that you know how to use this to support your kids. So thank you again for coming today, but also thank you for just the awesome, incredible work that you guys are doing. I was an educator. It's the hardest, most important job around. So I cannot say thank you enough. Mark, I will toss it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Olivia. Great session. I've used Screencastify a lot. I use it all the time when I'm trying to explain to someone how to do something on a computer, because it's just much easier to send them a video than it is to try and explain it in an email, and quicker. Great way to give feedback. I really love the question component, and for some reason I thought maybe that was only in the paid for version. So I'm super excited about being able to use that. I was actually a little bit off task creating my own video with sample questions while you were explaining one of the other elements, which I'm sure other people were doing as well. So great to see that happen. Now, along with the survey that Olivia has put in, there's a quick little evaluation, and I will also send this out to you tomorrow, just so that we can get some evaluation from a Catholic Learning Online point of view about the session and what it is that we can do to meet your needs. Also, I know I sent you 3 reminder emails. If that was too much, please let me know. I just thought it might help you get here. It's a great turnout, so thank you very much for everybody for coming. Thank you, Olivia. 1:30 in the morning. Doesn't look like you had too many red wines yet. So congratulations, you've done well.
Thank
you. Put a lot into a really short period of time. So thank you very much for that. The evaluation is there. I will actually throw it in the chat in about 10 seconds once I finish talking. But again, to all the teachers that have joined today, thank you for your professionalism. I'm sure your students will thank you. Hopefully you can use this tool to work a little bit smarter, do a better job for the students, and save yourself a little bit of time. So that's a win all around. So thank you for coming along. Thank you, Olivia, for staying up all night. If Carolyn's in the background, thank you as well.
Mark, do you mind if I just say one more quick thing?
Yep.
My email address will also be in the slide deck that I share with Mark. I'm going to also just drop it in the chat box. I know that you guys probably don't believe me, but I am very open to receiving emails and answering questions. I tell hundreds of people this a week, and for some reason, no one ever sends me any emails about anything. So if you have any questions or you need any help that we didn't get to today, please feel free to use my email address.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Look, looks like we're going to finish a minute and a half early. So thank you, everybody. If you wouldn't mind doing the evaluations either now or a little bit later, I'll send out the reminders. I'll send out a link to the video. I'll send out the presentation as well. So hopefully there'll be enough there to help you out. Likewise, feel free to reach out to any